If apathy had been a Greek god, sitting around in his toga asking, "What's the point?" and Mount Olympus had been a blue-collar dive bar in Chicago, and Homer had been a faithful Catholic, it's possible that Joe Peterson's new novel Gideon's Confession might have been published a little earlier than this year, like maybe 800 BC?
Before my uncle died, his checks arrived in the mail first Wednesday of every month. I don't know why they arrived, but they arrived nonetheless like a benediction.
Gideon's Confession by Joe Peterson is the story of what happens to a young man when all his bills are paid by someone else. Unsurprisingly, his ambition falls apart, his love life goes to pot, and his friendships, even the most superficial ones, founder on the rocks of lassitude.
The first check came in the mail when I was 19 years old, and I had no idea then that more checks would come. But come they did with unfailing regularity until the final check, which arrived 6 months after he passed away. It arrived exactly on my 29th birthday with a little note that spoke from the grave. It said merely, "This is the end of them."
Joseph G. Peterson grew up in a blue-collar suburb of Chicago called Wheeling, where most men worked on their cars, not their novels. He proudly paid his way through the University of Chicago working as a smith in an aluminum mill, and his prose reflects his hard-working roots. It's interesting that he has devoted an entire novel to the study of idleness. Perhaps he's fascinated by it because he's never experienced it. He is the author of 2 other novels, Beautiful Peace and Wanted Elevator Man. To listen to a great interview of the charming author, click here.
With his monthly checks, he usually appended a small note asking how I was doing, and I usually sent a small reply thanking him, letting him know that everything was fine. And his notes, which were tidily handwritten with an ink pen, he would divulge the particulars of his month with an epistolary formality that reminded me of a pen-pal relationship I had carried on during my grammar school days with a Belgian boy named Bernd.
Now, I've never lived in Chicago, but all the people I've ever met from that deep-dish town are square-jawed, straight-talking, roll-up-your-sleeves-and-get-to-work kind of folks. And I have to say that Mr. Peterson's prose has that same feel. It's strong, it's sturdy, it's simple. It never indulges to any degree. In fact, it feels religious in its reserve. The story, too, has a strong moralistic center, like an unembellished Canterbury tale or a cautionary myth. And perhaps it's because I've never liked church or the sermons therein that I found the story a touch too simple. I longed for a deeper, perhaps more complicated inquiry into Gideon. However, the book does deliver on its promise. It is a confession, and it does wash the reader clean. I think it was Jesus who said, "If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained."